Hello and a very happy Christmas to you all. Last year, you might remember, we invited all of our specialist music presenters, that's Big John Kaneen with the folk, Ian Cottier with brass, Ernie Thorn with opera, Maurice Powell with the light classics, myself H with the sweet and swing music and nostalgia, and with brother Chris doing jumping in with the modern jazz. We all sat round a table and spoke about our specialist musics, why we loved that music so much and how we got drawn into it, and played a few tracks of our choice. This year, we thought we'd do something a little different. And so instead, we sent a Christmas card to all of our presenters, asking them to choose a track or two of some music outside of their specialist area, and talk a little bit about that. The programme you're about to hear is the result. I see time is marching on, so take it away, Big John.
My grandfather's clock was too large for the shelf, so it stood 90 years on the floor. It was taller by half than the old man himself, though it weighed not a pennyweight more. It was bought on the morn of the day that he was born, and was always his treasure and pride. But it stopped short, never to go again when the old man died.
Hello, I'm John Kaneen, presenter of the folk music programme here on Manx Radio. When I was young, about 70 years ago, my favourite song was My Grandfather's Clock, written in 1876 by the American composer Henry Clay Work, who also wrote Marching Through Georgia. You've just heard a little bit of the song by Johnny Cash. I think that perhaps I may have learnt it from my grandmother, who had quite a store of music hall songs. It's a song which has been very popular down the years with both country and folk singers. Johnny Cash recorded it, also Burl Ives, Doc Watson, and I even have a recording of it by George Formby's father, George Sr. It wasn't until a few years ago that I became aware that the tune had become popular among military and brass bands. So here, to take a leaf out of Ian Cottier's Time for Brass programme, My Grandfather's Clock, played by Ken C. Wood on the euphonium, the Heights Concert Band of Texas. Hello again from John Kaneen. On this occasion, I'm going to trespass into Maurice Powell's area of musical influence, a little light music, or classical music generally. Looking through my recordings by folk musicians, I find quite a few which are classical. For example, there's Bach Goes to Limerick by Steel Ice Band, Beethoven's Sonatina played by the Irish trio Dordon, and the Alleluia Canon by William Boyce, performed by Pete Seeger. However, I've decided to play for you this time this 1999 recording of the Irish group Dedonan, playing The Arrival of the Queen of Sheba in Galway, to wish you a very happy Christmas.
This is Ernie leaving opera behind and selecting an item for Howard's Friday Sweet and Swing programme. It's a track from an album I play regularly in my car when I'm driving. It's very laid back, keeps me calm when I'm driving. It dates back to 1984. It was inspired by Johnny Mercer's widow Ginger, who entrusted a selection of his lyrics that had never been set to music to this particular songwriter to see what he could make of them, and he invited a collection of veteran jazz musicians and a couple of soloists to join with him on this particular album. The album's entitled 2 AM Paradise Cafe. The entire album was rehearsed for 3 days and then recorded entirely live in one take with no overdubbing in Los Angeles, as I say, in 1984. And the track that I've chosen, the words were by Bruce Sussman and Jack Feldman, and it's a duet with Sarah Vaughan and Barry Manilow, Sarah Vaughan taking the main role. The song entitled Blue.
When nights are long,
it seems so long, so very long.
I think of you.
My heart is aching and I'm
Could you
so
be blue?
As blue as those eyes of
As
yours.
blue as I am.
My sweet, sweet baby.
When lovers pass.
And now that spring is here.
Do you feel blue?
What do I do?
And wish you
without you.
where we went
Without you to walk
round.
with a dog with.
I'd like to call.
I'm staring at the phone.
But I'm afraid I'll find that I'm not on your mind.
You never
All
guess
night
the song they play.
when Sundays come,
Sometimes I wonder
what gets you through?
what gets me through.
Are you still glad you're free? Or are you blue like me? Like me.
It's Ernie from Wednesday's opera programme with a selection for Ian's Time for Brass. It's a work based on a Welsh hymn tune written by John Roberts. I Am Coming, Lord is the English translation. The reason for selecting this is I was very impressed many years ago by a very large Welsh male voice choir which sang a choral arrangement of the work. It's only recently I found out that there's a brass band piece, again using this Welsh hymn tune as its basis. It's not an arrangement as such, it's more variations on a theme, written by Tom Dvoren, and on this performance we're going to hear the Corey Band, conducted by Philip Harper, with a tenor horn solo given by Owen Farr. So this is Diversions on Gwahadiad by Tom Dvoren.
Well, now you've lured me off my familiar ground of brass bands, I'd better confess that I'm a bit of a musical gypsy. Over the years I've been involved in most kinds of music, except John's specialism, folk, though even there's nothing really that I can't listen to with pleasure. But my musical education began as quite a small child with a wind-up gramophone and a stack of 78 RPM records that my uncle Alex left with my mother when he went off to war in the RAF. He was a great opera fan, so I cut my opera listening teeth on the likes of Beniamino Gigli and Enrico Caruso. Much later, when Linda and I were working in Harlow in Essex, we used to go regularly to the English National Opera, which in those days was at Sadler's Wells. And so, sorry Ernie to be trampling over your territory, but here are the final minutes of Mozart's The Marriage of Figaro. The lecherous Duke is trying to seduce Figaro's fiancée Susanna. Figaro is all for punching his head, not knowing that Susanna and the Countess have swapped clothes, and the Duke is making improper advances to his own wife. All is suddenly revealed, and the most gorgeous reconciliation takes place.
Gente, allarmi, allarmi, il padrone, gente, aiuto, aiuto, son perduto, cosa per te, io scelerato, l'ho tradito, l'ho immolato, e conquista per te. Son sorcito, alla spina, di capo, che ci siamo, invano resistete, uscite, madama, il premio l'avrete, riposo nell'onestà. Il paggio, mia figlia, mia madre, la palazzo bella e la trama e la perfida e quello perdila e qua. Perdono, non sperarla, perdono, non badarla, perdono,
Quite a lot of years later I took my son Juan to Figaro, and as we came out of the theatre into a summer twilight he suddenly remarked, "Well, Dad, it was worth going to that just for that final scene." He was right, of course. He usually is. So, second confession. I'm a bit of a Mozart junkie. Well, I'm a lot of a Mozart junkie, actually, and my second choice is also Mozart. What an incredible talent, and what an amazing output. 41 symphonies for starters, then 20-odd piano concertos, operas, concertos for combinations you wouldn't first think of, flute and harp, for instance. Absolutely sublime. And then his unfinished Requiem. All this in 36 years. What further delights might we have had if he'd lived a normal span? Enough of me, though. You want to hear music, not me prattling. Very popular is the second movement of his Piano Concerto No. 21, as it was the basis of the film score of Elvira Madigan. My favourite, though, is the middle movement of No. 20. And now I'll shut up and let you enjoy it.
Hello, I'm Maurice Powell. Oh, I nearly said welcome to A Little Light Music, Manx Radio's regular Thursday evening classical music hour. But of course, I'm not doing that programme on this occasion. This is a Christmas special where some of our freelance expert musicians have selected their favourite pieces for the festive season, and I've been asked to choose two pieces from a genre which I don't normally play from, and I've chosen the world of the brass band. Now, I have a connection with brass banding which goes back many years. It was in the late 70s when I lived in Skipton on the edge of the Yorkshire Dales. I conducted the Skipton Band for 2 or 3 seasons, and a lovely time it was as well. We did go to some of the big competitions in London at the Albert Hall, but we never won anything because we were up against bands like Brighouse and Hammonds and Black Dyke. But we did rather well, and it was good to go down there on a coach and compete. We also won cups and competitions more locally, such as Hard Draw Scar up in North Yorkshire. It was a wonderful time. We played at all the local galas in the outlying villages, Remembrance Sunday and carnivals, and gave lots of concerts. And I remember that one of the most popular pieces we played was my first choice for this evening, which was Ronnie Binge's Cornet Carillon. Now, I do play the music of Ronnie Binge quite often because he is also a light music composer of some quality, but he was basically an accordion player with Mantovani's orchestra. Now, many of you remember that Mantovani had a special sound which he called cascading strings, very cleverly written sort of delayed action string parts, which made an almost sort of bell-like sound. And Ronnie Binge invented that device, and he uses it in this lovely piece, which is written for 3 solo cornets. So Ronald Binge, Cornet Carillon. Now, for my next piece, I've chosen a piece of music for brass band made famous through its association with a popular television detective series, Hetty Wainthropp Investigates. It's rather mild, not too much violence, but it's very enjoyable, and if you like the Lancashire towns and the Lancashire countryside, there's plenty to enjoy. It starred, of course, the wonderful Patricia Routledge as a retired lady who, rather than just quietly fade away in retirement with endless cups of tea and knitting, decided to become a private detective. The music, the introductory music for that series, was played by a Black Diet Mills band with their solo cornet player, Philip McCann, who has the most wonderful sound I've ever heard. So this is a real piece of brass band music. It certainly reminds me of the hills in Yorkshire and Lancashire very much when I hear this wonderful sound.
Hello, this is H.
And this is Chris.
And this is the festive specialties of specialists, as it were. So, what have we got? Who knows what the others have got, but we are starting... Well, I don't know. What are we starting with today,
who
then?
knows what we're starting with? I like opera and classical music and early music, and probably pop is the thing I have least of in my collection, as well as, of course, of groaning shelves full of jazz. But folk, I used to play in the folk club over here, for those of you with long memories, when it used to be very, very active in the Central on the promenade and up at the Falcon Cliff before that, and then latterly further along the promenade. And it used to be a very burgeoning folk scene on the island. But what is folk music? Again, difficult to pin it down, I suppose. It could be anything from a fisherman singing on a Hebridean island to uilleann pipes to a ceilidh band to somebody playing bluegrass or crossing over into blues, I suppose. It could be John Martin with his very folky beginnings, which moved into electronica and looping, a very, very early exponent of that. But this group that I've chosen all met each other 20-odd years ago in Bristol. They still play together. They've released 4 albums in the studio over 20 years and 1 live album. This is their second album. The group's called Spiro, and it's a quartet made up of mandolin, accordion, violin and guitar. Bristol-based band Spiro with Lightbox, and is the album, and the track was The Darkling Plains. They remind me a little bit of Simon Jeff's Penguin Cafe Orchestra, if you remember those.
Yes,
and
I was thinking that. I was wondering what it was. It's the Penguin Cafe,
it's a bit
isn't
like
it?
that, a smaller version of that. And they also cross over into bits of minimalism to an extent. And I sometimes think that across all these different styles of music, it's the ones that drift towards unclassifiable on the edges, which can sometimes be the more interesting. And Spiro, if you catch one of their 4 albums, one reviewer said, Spiro, what can I say? They sort of remind me of what Tangerine Dream might sound like if they played English acoustic folk music rather than German electronica.
Yeah, very good. Good quote. Good quote. Okay, well, my choice then. I'm heading to Ernie's Day of the Week, which is Wednesday, for opera. Now, whilst we've been deeply steeped in jazz all our lives, have never been a million miles away from opera because our very own sister, Hilary, has spent her entire life working on pretty much most of her professional life working professionally in opera. And, I don't know if it's an age thing, but the older I've got, the more I've sort of enjoyed opera. I didn't get it when I was young, and I think I sort of do get it more now. I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I think once I've gone to, and I've been lucky to go to some in Belgium, I've been to the Met in New York, I've been to Venice, and been to Covent Garden, I've been down to Glyndebourne now, and I've really enjoyed them all, I must admit. So I've seen quite a few of the classics. There are a lot more I'd like to see, particularly this one, I think. You don't get them performed so often as some of the Baroque and early operas, and this is Dido and Aeneas, Purcell's only full through composed opera, that is one where no spoken dialogue is used, and he later used it quite a bit in his dramatic operas. Dido and Aeneas first performed, we are told in the libretto, first performed at Mr. Josiah Priest's boarding school at Chelsea by young gentlewomen, the words by Mr. Nat Tate, the music composed by Mr. Henry Purcell. This is 1689 when the performance took place, and it was his first attempt at opera as well. Pretty good for a first attempt, I would say. I remember hearing this track for the first time on Desert Island Discs, I think it was, with Ken Hom, the Chinese chef of all people, who said, I just love this, Dido's Lament.
Death is
Wonderful stuff. Love it, really beautiful track, that one. I know it's quite often quoted as well. Dido's Lament from Dido and Aeneas by Henry Purcell. Words by not Nathaniel's, Nahum Tate, wasn't it? First performed 1689. Emma Kirkby, the solo, beautiful voice. Taverner Choir and Taverner Plays conducted by Andrew Parrott. Not the most Christmassy, I grant you, but I hope you agree with me. It's an absolutely beautiful piece. If nothing else, it might tempt you to delve into the world of opera. A very happy Christmas from all of the specialist music presenters here on Manx Radio. We look forward to your company in 2022, and may the new year bring you health and happiness.